Hello, welcome to this handy dandy tutorial on Sunday Morning by Maroon 5. This is part of a bigger project that I'm doing where I take an album that I like, in this case Songs About Jane, and I just do a bunch of stuff about it. I make covers and tutorials and podcasts and all kinds of things. You can find that linked down below in the description in case you care to learn more about it. But for right now, let's get into the song. This is a great song. Really simple musically. It's 3 chords the entire time. It's a 2-5-1 progression. I'll explain what that means if you don't know. But it's a good song, and it's great. I'm excited to do it. First of all, standard tuning, the key of C. We're going to be playing C shapes. Where the first chord of the song is a D minor. So this is what we call a 2-5-1 progression. It's kind of jazzy. If you ever hear a jazz musician say 2-5-1, this is the thing that they're playing. Now, what does that mean? If you play the major scale, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If you play that, what you can do is you can assign each note a number. And so you go, your C in the key of C, right, is your 1, do, re is 2, mi is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is the octave. And so each one of those corresponds to a note of the scale. What you can do from there is you can build it out into a whole chord. And then that's what we typically refer to. And so 1, 2, if we're playing a 2-5-1, you start on the 2, which is a D. That's going to be a minor. So your first chord is a D minor. So you can play that over here, or you can play it as a bar chord. And we'll get into bar chords here in a little bit. I'll show you an easy way to play bar chords and a helpful way to think about them to know what it is that you're doing. But for now, D minor, you play it here. You have your D in the bass, the D string open, your 2nd fret on the G string, 3rd fret on the B, 1st fret on the E. From here you go to a G, and then from here you go to a C. And that's the whole song. Like literally you just loop that over and over and over again. And so you go, Sunday morning, rain is falling. Add some percussion. Steal some covers, shed some skin. Clouds are shrouding us in moments unforgettable. You twist to fit the mold that I am in. That's the entire song. You just loop that around. Now, if you're happy with that, cool beans. If you want to learn some more, let's get into it. This is more kind of stylistic things that you can do to just have fun with the song, make it sound a little different, and be cool and have fun. So firstly, the song never goes to an A minor. It doesn't play an A minor at any point in the song. But sometimes whenever I'm playing, I'm like, you know what, this needs to go to the A minor. And so if you just feel like doing that, throw it in there at the end. So you go, so right there, for example, the first time around I was like, an A minor feels appropriate. The second time around, it felt like an A minor would have not been the feel that I was going for. And so I like to go to an A minor occasionally from the C at the end of the loop. Use it sparingly, use it appropriately and wisely. Because if you do it every time, it's just not going to sound as good, I don't think. That's one thing you can do. You can go 2, 5, 1 to the 6. So again, your 2 is your D minor, your 5 is your G, your 1 is like your home base, it's like where we're coming from, which is the C, and then A minor is the 6. So the more you know. Now, for different ways that you can play these chords. This D minor, you can play it as a D minor 7, as opposed to, the difference is this. You hear that note difference right there. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting my index finger on the 1st fret of the E and B strings, and then my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. And then I have the open D as the bass note. You can also do this with 2 fingers, with these 2 fingers on the 1st frets of these 2 strings, the E and B. Depends on how you want to play it, but that's a D minor 7, as opposed to a regular D minor. that adds a slightly different flavor to it. Same with the G. Instead of playing a normal G shape, you can play a G7. And there's different ways to play that as well. So you can play it as a normal G, but instead of having the third fret of the high E string being played, you play the first fret of the high E string. So you go to the C. Probably the best way to do it, that's going to sound the best in this key using these shapes, is playing it as a bar chord. Now, let's get into bar chords, because this is where we can really kind of open up a little bit and play some different things. Now, let's play it as a bar chord because it'll give a slightly different feel, and this is where we get a little more advanced, I guess. The D minor. Right here, we can play it like this. So, good thing to know is all the bar chords that you're ever going to come across on a guitar are based off of the E and A shapes. So, E major, E minor, A major, and A minor. You play all of those, but then you put your bar. And so here's what we're gonna do. If your bass note is on the A string, it's gonna be based off of the A shapes, right? And so we're gonna start by playing an A minor shape, but using these 3 fingers instead of these 3. So use your pinky. So you go middle finger on the first fret of the B, pinky and ring finger on the second fret of the D and G strings. And then you play the A open. Your index finger you leave hanging. And so what you're going to do is you're now going to move this up. We'll move it up 2 frets. You go 1, 2. You put your index finger on the bass note. In this case, we'll play it on the 2nd fret. And so this goes A, B flat, or A sharp, to a B. We have our A minor shape right here. This is a B minor, because you have your B in the bass, and then you have your A minor shape. Right, and so you just imagine you're moving it up chromatically. You go A minor, A sharp minor, B minor, keep going, you go C minor, C sharp minor, you put it up to the 5th fret, you get to your D minor. Right, you have your D in the bass, and then your minor shape. Now, I've only been playing these 4 strings in the middle. I haven't played the high E string. That's because if you can't do that with your bar chord, like if you're still learning, that's totally fine. You can just leave that open. Or you can mute it, not have it be played. Or if you can bar it, go ahead and bar it. It'll sound good that way. And so this is another way to play a D minor. Now, if you want to play a D minor 7 as a bar chord, you do the same thing. You just play your A minor. The way you play an A minor 7 is playing it like this, you take your pinky off so that way your G string is open instead of on the 2nd fret. It's open. And then you move that up to where we were, on the 5th fret. So now you've gone from D minor to D minor 7 by taking your pinky off. And so you can start there, you go to a G. So G, our bass note, is now on the E string. And so we're going to play the same thing. We're going to do an E major shape with these 3 fingers instead of these 3. So middle finger on the 1st fret of the G string, ring and pinky on the 2nd of the A and D. Your index finger, you're going to move up. Alright, we're going to keep moving up until we get to G as our bass note, right here on the 3rd fret. And so now we have a G in the bass, an E major shape. This is a G major. Now, you can bar the whole thing, or if you can't do that yet, what you can do is you can reach around with your thumb to play that bass note right here, and your index finger can play the same fret on the B string. And so this is another way to play a G major shape. You hear it. You hear how it's the same. And it's just your E shape, you just move it up. And so if we're going to play this as an E7, right, coming from the D minor 7, to play this as an E7, to play this as a G7 instead of the G major, what we do is we take our pinky off again, right? And so we have, instead of on the 2nd fret of the D string, we have it open. So you take that shape, you move that up. And if you can't bar that, what I like to do is, again, reach around with my thumb to get that bass note in there. I'll play my index finger on the 3rd fret of the D string. And that there plays the same thing. And if you can't do that, then honestly just play it normally. It's not that big a deal. It's a 1-note difference that is not super significant. If you're unable to do it, it's okay. You'll just practice it, you'll get better. But yeah, so those are our first 2 chords. So you can play a D minor, G7, to a C. The C, we can also play this as a 7. And so what you do is you play it normally as a C, but you take your index finger off. And so the B string is open instead of on the 1st fret. You hear the difference there. Now to play that as a bar chord, you do the same thing. We're going to play an A major shape because our bass note is here on the A string. And so you play an A major shape, and move it up, put your index finger on the A string, move that up to the 3rd fret, and that's a C major as a bar chord. So now to play that as A major 7, we're going to go back down here to the A. You're going to put your middle finger on the 1st fret of the G string, and your ring finger goes where your middle finger was on the 2nd fret of the D string. And so it should look like this. Again, that's ring finger on the 2nd fret of the D. Middle finger on the 1st fret of the G. And your pinky on the 2nd fret of the B. And you play starting on the A. And so now we move this up to the 3rd fret, and you strum that. Oh yeah. And so from here, you can go up to the 5th fret, play your A minor shape, go down to the G, and to your C7, C major 7. And you loop it back around. You go up and down and over and up and for example. Now, another way to play the A minor right here, you can also play that up here. So this is going to be your minor shape, right? Your E minor shape, because it's an A minor, not an A major. So E minor shape, and you move that up to the 5th fret of the E string, and you play that. You hear how that's the same. And so that's how you play bar chords, and you can that'll add a little spice because now you can make it a minor 7. And it also feels fun to play it this way, I think. And so with that, let's go ahead and just play the song. We're going to take it from the top. If you can't do the bar chords, again, just feel free to play it normally with these open shapes. D minor, G, C, the occasional A minor. However you want to play it. The point of this is to enjoy the song, not to get overly complicated. Though sometimes those coincide. So let's go into it. D minor. It's Sunday morning, rain is falling. Steal some cover, shed some skin. Your clouds are shrouding us in moment. A minor, unforgettable, you twist to fit the mold that I am in. Stay on the C. Now things just get so crazy, living life gets hard to do. And I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday it'll bring me back to you. Well, that someday it'll bring me back to you. That may be all that I need. In darkness she is all that I see. Come and rest your bones with me. A minor driving slow on Sunday morning. We don't ever wanna leave. Cool. So you may have noticed at one point I went to this diminished chord before going up to the D minor. So one more final thing though is great to do, especially in this song and in this album as a whole, is going to a diminished as a passing chord. And so you go from the C, however it is that you're playing it, and we go to a diminished seventh chord. All that's doing is helping us walk up chromatically to this D minor. And so the way this looks is you take your middle finger, put it on the 4th fret of the A, your ring finger goes on the 5th fret of the D, your pointer finger on the 3rd fret of the G, and your pinky on the 5th fret of the B. And that sounds horribly tense. Alright? And that's the point. These are great for transitions, again moving up chromatically and building that tension until we release it here on the D minor. And so again you go C to this diminished to the D minor. That's a diminished chord. Those are great for transitions. And yeah, again, it's not a super complicated song. It's just those same chords the entire time, and it's kind of a bop. So if you have any other questions, let me know down below in the comments, and hopefully you learned something about bar chords, how to play those, and yeah. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. This is the final song in my covers that I'm doing off of this album, Songs About Jane. Next time around, I'll have a different album that I'm doing. So hopefully you stay tuned for that, and I'll see you around the next one. Toodles!